Democrats panic as Republicans continue to gain momentum up and down the ballot. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back again with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because it appears that Democrats continue to panic. Yeah, that's right. Despite what Democrats may claim about the current state of the race, it appears that behind closed doors, they're beginning to panic across the board. Look at this headline from Axios. Democratic fears emerge on Wisconsin Senate race. That is not a misquote, that's not a typo. This is right from Axios. They are admitting that, yeah, behind closed doors, Democrats are beginning to panic everywhere, including in Wisconsin for the Senate race, which most of us thought it was going to be closer than usual, but Tammy Baldwin was still the clear favorite. Now, I'm not saying that Eric Hovde's going to win, but the fact is, Democrats behind closed doors, they are admitting that, yeah, it turns out we're not in a good situation at all. Look at this. Baldwin leads by just 2 points in internal Democratic polling, a source familiar with the campaign told Axios. That is much closer than what public polling has shown for months. Yeah, the Baldwin campaign, they have her up by only 2 points. And it seems like every day the lead gets smaller and smaller and smaller for Baldwin. Now, I still think she's the favorite, but the fact is they're now admitting to Axios that, yeah, it turns out we are in deep trouble in Wisconsin. Which, by the way, if they're in deep trouble in Wisconsin, what do you think's happening in Ohio? What do you think's happening in Montana? Do you really think that Tester and Brown are going to win? Like, if Baldwin is having problems in Wisconsin, what do you think's happening to those two clowns? Because while, yes, Wisconsin at the presidential level is a competitive state, it's much more closer than Ohio and especially Montana. So if they're down in, or they're barely up in Wisconsin, do you really think that Sherrod Brown's going to win in Ohio? Do you really think that Jon Tester's going to win in Montana? It's entirely possible. I'm not saying that Baldwin's going to lose and then Sherrod Brown's going to lose as well. But the fact is, in recent days, the Democrats, they're starting to panic. They're starting to realize, oh crap, we have a big problem in Wisconsin. For crying out loud, our own polling shows us up by only 2 points, which is a margin of error. You are one sampling error away from Baldwin losing. That's what they're admitting to Axios. That's not a good sign, by the way. If they're admitting that they're up by only 2, more than likely, it's probably gotten worse since. Now, I'm not saying that Hovde's gonna win, but these numbers are just pathetic for them. And it seems like the Republicans, they actually believe they have a chance here. A super PAC linked with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is making a new $17 million investment in the state, along with Hovde making his own infusion of over $2 million. Yeah, Mitch McConnell is actually spending money on Wisconsin. If he is willing to spend money here, that means that they realize they have an opportunity to flip the state. Now, that doesn't mean that, again, Hovde's not the clear favorite. I'm not saying that. But at some point, if the Republican and even the Democrat parties, if they're realizing that this is a super competitive race, and now Democrats, they have to spend like $20 million or whatever, just to make up for this fundraising gap they've had in recent days, that's not good for them. Because that's money that should be going to Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Jon Tester in Montana, though. Let's be honest. More than likely, Tester's done. Which at that point, Republicans got the Senate. But either way, this is money that should not be spent in Wisconsin. If Baldwin was really up by 5 to 6 points, like Marquette showed a couple days ago, if she was really up by that much, they would not be spending this much money on Tammy Baldwin. They wouldn't. They would more than likely spend the money in Ohio, and hell, even a state like Florida, which I know is crazy, but for whatever reason, Democrats in recent days, they really believe there's a Senate race that's competitive in Florida and especially Texas. But they're starting to realize, more than likely, that's off the table. So they have to spend money in Wisconsin for the Senate race, which I know the presidential race, it's been very close, but Tammy Baldwin should still be the clear favorite. But the fact that Democrats, they're starting to run to Axios and say, yeah, we're up by only 2 points. And that's what they're willing to admit. Like, you don't admit to Axios that, yeah, we're up by only 2 points. When you admit that, there's a chance your polling might be even worse than that, which I'm not saying that's the case, but this is not good for Harris, or I should say Baldwin, whatsoever. But it's not just Wisconsin for the Senate race that's looking real bad for Democrats. Look at Montana. Right now, it looks like Tim Sheehy's gonna win. I mean, at this point in time, he's above 50% in the RCP average. He's up by 6 points. And the remaining undecideds, they're Trump voters. Now, I'm not saying Tester's gonna lose by 15 points, but it's not looking good for him at all. And if Sheehy pulls it off, which I think he will, that's 51 for Republicans. They got the Senate majority. Now, to be clear, they still got to deal with Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, but at the bare minimum, it looks like Sheehy's going to win. And that does give Republicans a Senate majority. And that doesn't include Ohio, which I believe Sherrod Brown's going to lose. Now, it's not a guarantee, obviously, and you look at the RCP average right now, it's Brown plus 4. But there's a big catch. Brown's only at 47%. Like, it's better than Harris, but it's only 47% of the vote. And the remaining undecideds, they're like 90% Trump voters. Now, Brown's going to win a chunk of them, I believe, but more than likely, the vast majority of these undecideds, which are Trump voters, by the way, they're going to break for Moreno, and by a lot. So Brown being at 47%, it's a lead, but it's not like with Montana where he's above 50% and it seems like every day he's getting a larger percent of the vote. In Ohio, right now, Sherrod Brown's only at 47%, and his lead in recent weeks has shrunk. A couple weeks ago, it was like a 5 to 6 point lead. Now it's only a 4-point lead. And for those that don't know, in recent days, Sherrod Brown has been running ads claiming he's the Trump candidate. He's going to be pro-Trump. He's going to support tariffs. You know, that crap again. That's the same thing that Tester did a couple weeks ago. And right after he started doing that, his numbers collapsed. Because guess what? When they start running as the Trump candidate, a Democrat, more than likely that means they're probably behind. You don't run as the Trump candidate as a Democrat. You don't. But if they start LARPing as that, like they are in Montana and now Ohio, apparently, they're probably going to lose. Because at that point, they know that, oh crap, we're way behind. These undecided voters, they're going to break for Moreno, they're going to break for Sheehy because they're Trump voters. And while it's possible that we could win a chunk of these voters, there's just too many Trump voters that are going to break for Moreno. They're going to break for Sheehy. Do you really think, like half of Trump voters that are undecided in Ohio, do you really think they're going to break for Brown? I highly doubt it. Is it possible? I guess. But in recent weeks, it's clear his polling has gone down. He's not cracking 50%. And in fact, compared to prior years, these are his worst polls ever. These are just pathetic for him. He's barely up by 4 points, or not even that. He's up by 3.8%. He's barely winning. He's not above 50. He's way below it. And it seems like Moreno, he's slowly climbing. Every day it's, okay, one day he's at 42%. The next day it's 43%. And then a week after that it's 44%. It's slowly trending upwards. So I think at this point, Moreno's probably going to win. I think Sheehy's going to win for obvious reasons. And that's 52. And now Democrats, they're worried about Wisconsin. And now, that doesn't include Pennsylvania. Yeah, the Pennsylvania Senate race, which I will be the first to admit I was wrong. I didn't think McCormick would be that good of a candidate. I thought he was going to get crushed. Well, I was wrong. Right now, Bob Casey isn't even cracking 50%. His polls, especially the past week, have been awful. Outside of that one Fox News poll, which I think is an outlier, I mean, Casey plus 9, that's the only good poll the last week for Casey. It's been Casey plus 2, Casey plus 1, Casey plus 2, and that's from good pollsters like Emerson, Atlas Intel, Trafalgar. They have Casey winning, but it's only by like 2 points. And not only that, every single one of them, they have him at 47%. which is a complete disaster because just like in Ohio and Montana, more than likely these undecided voters, they're going to lean towards McCormick. These are undecided voters that are Trump voters. Now, not every single one of these undecideds are going to be Trump voters, obviously. It's not like Ohio and Montana that are deep red states. Pennsylvania is a purple state, I get that. But more than likely, these undecided voters, they lean heavily towards Trump. So these voters, they're going to break for McCormick. And as an incumbent, you want to be above 50%. Because if you're above 50%, you got it. You're not going to lose for obvious reasons. But if you're not even at 50%, and for crying out loud, I mean, he's actually gone down. It's not just McCormick's going up. His vote share, Casey's, has gone down. In August, he was at roughly 49%, 49.5%, and earlier in April, he was at 50%. Now he's barely below 49%, and a couple weeks ago, it was only 47%. These are not good numbers for Casey. So if Democrats have to defend Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, do you really think they can win Texas? Do you really think they can win Florida? I guess it's possible because Ted Cruz and Rick Scott, they're going to underperform Trump by a couple points. I get that. But there's a reason why they're banking on trying to flip one of those two states. Because they realized we are screwed in Montana, that we're probably going to lose Ohio, we're in trouble in Wisconsin, and for crying out loud, Bob Casey may go down. Especially after that debate performance last night. And I know debates, they don't usually matter, but it was such a pathetic performance by Casey, I would not be surprised if his numbers went down. And for those that don't believe me, well, look at this. There was an online survey from the local ABC News affiliate, and I'm not saying that these surveys are 100% correct. They can be misleading. They're not everything. But look at this. 70% said David McCormick won the debate. And quite frankly, I'm shocked that it's only 70%. If you go back and watch the debate, and I recommend people watch the debate, McCormick clearly won. It was a blowout. To me, Bob Casey seemed like he had no clue what the hell he was talking about. It's like, this is the guy that has won re-election by like 15 points every year? This is the guy that everyone said was unstoppable? It is clear to me now that the only reason he did so good in recent years was because of his last name. He was the son of a well-liked governor from the 90s. An actual pro-life Democrat. That's the only reason this guy has won every single year. And while I think McCormick is not favored right now, I think right now it's a close race. Bob Casey might actually go down, and if that happens, there is no legitimate pathway for Democrats, because at that point, they're losing Ohio, they're losing Montana, they're losing Pennsylvania. Even if they flip both Texas and Florida, right, and get Lisa Murkowski to flip parties, at that point, it would only be 50-50. And if Trump wins, J.D. Vance is a tie-breaking vote. And that's assuming that they don't lose in Wisconsin. That's assuming that an upset doesn't occur in Michigan or Nevada. Do you see the problem here? Democrats have a big problem in the Senate races. There's no pathway for them right now. And if you think this is bad, there's been brand new polling for the presidential race in states like Michigan that look absolutely horrific for Democrats. Trafalgar, Trump +2. Mitchell Research, which isn't the best pollster out of Michigan, but compared to other pollsters, they tend to be a bit more accurate. You know, while everyone else is off by like 15 points or whatever, they're off by like 5 or 6. So they tend to be a bit more accurate, and usually they overstate Democrat support, just like nearly every other pollster. But either way, Mitchell Research found Trump +1. Nearly the same result as Trafalgar found. And nearly actually the same time frame. Trafalgar had a Trump +2. Mitchell Research found Trump +1. This is getting real bad for Democrats because it's clearly not just the Senate that they're struggling in. They're struggling in Michigan for the presidency. And if they lose Michigan, they're done. Kamala Harris is not going to win. They're down in Pennsylvania. They're down in Georgia. They're down in North Carolina. They're down in Arizona. It's like, how could you win? If you're not keeping the Senate, if you're losing the presidency, is there any positives here? There's nothing good here at all. The polling looks like a disaster. Early voting continues to get even worse for Democrats. Republicans now make up 27% of the mail-in ballot requests, which is way up from 2020, when it was only roughly 23% Republican. And Democrats, they're way down. There's no positives here. It's not just the polling, it's not just voter registration, it's early voting, it's every metric. I don't see any positive here at all for Democrats. Like, if you're going to lose states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, even at the Senate level, you're done. You're not going to win the Senate. You're not going to win the presidency. I'm not saying this is a foregone conclusion, but at some point, if you're doing this bad across the board, how can you spin this? Because it's not just one bad data point. It's everything. It's party registration, it's early voting, it's polling, it's the betting markets. There's nothing positive here for Democrats anywhere. And it's not just for the Senate, it's for the presidency. I just can't think of anything good here. Because in prior years, you could argue, well, maybe the early voting looks good for Democrats. That's not the case here at all. We just got to see what happens, but this is getting real bad. We are entering October, and it seems like it's getting even worse for Democrats. It could change, I guess, but right now, not looking good at all. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.